The B10R is the latest two-wheel drive racing buggy released at the end of 2024. It is a very impressive platform that is highly competitive and comes stock with many parts in the kit that would be expensive options to be purchased in other race kits. I've done a full series of videos including the unboxing, build and run reviews, so check them out on my channel if you want to know more about the B10R. Today's video is about this car, the B10TR. The T stands for truck because this is a two-wheel drive racing truck version of the B10R buggy. You see, very soon after the B10R was officially released, a number of racers were using parts from the PR V4T truck to convert the B10R buggies to truck trim, and they looked so amazing I decided to do a conversion of my own. I actually debated whether to do this video because PR has recently announced that a proper official B10TR kit will be released really soon in February. But I decided to go ahead with this video for two reasons. Firstly, it may be useful for those who already have the buggy and are considering a conversion. And secondly, it can serve as a preview of the B10TR truck to be released, since I think the truck would be very similarly spec'd as the one I have built. So this video will cover how I did the conversion, the parts I used in the process, as well as some interesting things I learned about the different optional parts you can choose to convert the buggy. I've also taken this truck to the local dirt track and will share some thoughts about the track performance of the car. Finally, I will discuss the cost of the conversion and whether or not I think it is worth doing it. The one thing I loved about PR's design philosophy is that they've tried to keep a useful level of compatibility between the different cars in their lineup. So this means that there's a significant number of parts that are shared between the V4T and the B10R cars. And it is for this reason that a conversion like this is not only possible, it's actually relatively easy without any major modification work. The conversion begins with the stock B10R buggy, and I first removed the wheels and the shocks and put them aside. I then started by working on the front end. The parts that would be replaced would be the front arms, turnbuckles, as well as the front shock tower. The front C-hubs and steering spindles will be reused, but need to be taken off the buggy arms so that they can be reassembled onto the longer truck arms. Here, the first option for you to consider for your conversion is that you can actually save some cost by reusing the B10R front spindles, as they actually fit on the truck wheels. However, although they fit, these buggy spindles may not be strong enough to handle the stress of heavier truck wheels. I actually broke one in my testing. So for ultimate durability, you may want to convert the spindles to the thicker truck ones as well. So having disassembled the relevant front parts, I moved on to disassembling the rear parts that I would not need. Off came the rear arms, drive shafts, shock tower, and wing assembly. And it is here at this point we have a second conversion option for you to consider, the rear hubs. The B10R rear hubs and axles actually fit the truck wheels. So you can again save some costs by reusing these. The rear hubs are actually nicer than the ones on the V4T in the sense that the design allows for more adjustments of the upper camber link. However, I found that retaining this setup had two trade-offs. The first is that it makes the rear track width rather narrow and results in the rear of the truck being about 10 mm narrower than the front. Now I think it's possible to use the available tuning options on the car to widen the rear track a little, but I'm not sure it would make up for the full 10 mm. The second trade-off has to do with the wheel options, and I will cover that later in the video. With the front and rear parts removed, the buggy is ready to be fitted with the new truck parts. So we start with a pack of trunk arms, part 674000036. It's convenient that PR packs a full set of trunk arms in one package that costs about the same price as a single arm on some other branded RC buggies. So the front arms are installed, and the hubs were a bit of a tight fit on the arms. So I sanded the inner side of the arm a little with a 600 grit sandpaper until the movement was smooth. The truck shock tower replaces the buggy one directly. Part number 67510016. And the two angled body mounts from the body mount set, part 67410016, are attached to the tower. New longer 50mm turnbuckles are used for the front camber links. They are 774-30056, and 55mm turnbuckles are used for the steering links. The part number for these are 774-30066. The front assembly goes together easily with the front C-hubs, spindles, and aluminum camber mounts reused. For those who may find it useful, my camber link setups are as follows. The camber link length exposed is 30.8mm, and it uses one standard 28.2mm rod end and one longer 31.3mm rod end. As far as the steering links are concerned, the exposed portion measures 36.7mm, and I have used again one 28.2mm rod end and a longer 31.3mm rod end. Now moving on to the rear, I have chosen to use the 82.5mm drive shafts, which are part number 664-10036. But the new B10TR kit from PR should be using the even longer 84.5mm ones, which should be part number 67000040. As mentioned, you can fit the longer wishbones to the stock B10R axles, but the width of the truck will be narrower at the rear than at the front. I have since swapped out the axles to the ones from the V4T, which are part number 674-10266. But note that these longer axles will only work with the V4T plastic rear hubs as well. The part number 664-00046. The longer drive shafts and arms are fitted, along with a longer rear 55mm turnbuckle. My truck is running a V4T rear hub, and the turnbuckle is set up with one 28.2mm long rod end and a short shock rod end with an exposed turnbuckle length of 39.6mm. If you are using the stock rear hubs, the turnbuckle length will be different. I found that with the stock hubs, you will also need a M3 x 1.5mm spacer here on the outer hinge pin to take up the space between the hub and the arm. The buggy shock tower is replaced with 68000043, which is the V4T shock tower. I've opted to fit the shocks back on with the stock B10R pistons and oils, but I've swapped out the green springs for PR yellow-white springs front and rear to match the truck weight and geometry. The shocks were cleaned up and reinstalled on the truck, and mechanically, the conversion is largely complete, and you can mount your truck body, wheels and tires, and are good to go. Do take note that the PR truck wheels run a different offset from associated wheels. These are the different part numbers for the PR wheels you can choose to get the proper offset. It is possible to run associated wheels, and I will cover what you need to do this in the next section, where I will also cover some additional info about the conversion that you might find useful. Let's talk about this additional conversion notes now. You might have noticed I did not mention installing the rear body mount. The stock rear body mount can be taken from the same parts tree where the front mounts were from and installed on the rear tower. However, I didn't install these because I found that these mounts support the rear of the body at their highest point, And when the truck flips over, the body pins tend to be ejected as the truck lands on its lid. I have lost quite a few body pins this way when I ran my V3T truck in this configuration. One possible helpful solution would be to cross-drill the body posts so the pins install across the body instead of in line with it. But this did not eliminate the problem completely. So for this truck, I decided to try a different solution, and I custom designed and 3D printed a rear body mount that connects to the body via holes on the body where the wing mounts. This body mount should have 3 advantages. Firstly, it eliminates the ejecting body pin problem by locating the body mount away from the highest point of the body. Secondly, in theory, it should support the rear of the body better as it stretches the width of the entire body. And thirdly, it pivots, so I can still easily access my chassis and battery, but have 2 less body pins to fiddle with and potentially lose at the track. I'm still testing the durability of this mount, but so far it has survived a few tumbles without any damage. And that pivot function makes fitting the body after battery changes really simple and somehow more satisfying as the front holes simply line up when the body is flipped down. Let's talk about the wheels on the B10TR. As mentioned, the PR trucks run wheels that have a deeper offset than associated style rims. This means that if you run associated rims without any modifications, the truck will come in at about 10 millimeters narrower than stock. However, if you have a stash of associated rims, the good news is you still can run them, but you will need to use the V4T axles front and rear, which will then allow you to run wideners which PR sells. I use the 9.2 mm wide hexes, part number 90440040, and these together with the axles will allow me to mount associated wheels with the proper track width. So to recap, the stock B10R axles will fit the stock PR truck wheels, but the rear track width will be narrower than the front. Using the V4T rear axles and hubs will widen the rear to match the front. And if you want to run associated wheels, you will need front and rear V4T axles and the rear V4T hubs together with the 9.2 mm thick hexes that should get your truck back to standard track width. Speaking about wheels, let's just talk about these cool bead locks that I have on my truck currently. I had a few different tires I wanted to test before permanently gluing the tires to the rims, so I custom designed and printed these bead locks. Old-timers in the hobby will notice they resemble the bead locks that were on the awesome lossy JRXTs of the 1990s. These wheels came out far better than I expected and have been more durable than I thought they would be. During testing, I actually broke a stock B10R front axle, but the wheel itself was not damaged. Unfortunately, I found that many modern truck tires come with internal ribbing that makes them unsuitable for beadlock wheels. The racing purists would probably disagree with me, but I think it would be awesome if we had the option to run some lightweight beadlock wheels on our stadium trucks again. I would also like to talk about running exposed spur gears on dirt tracks. From time to time, I've had various hobbyists express their doubt that exposed spurs in cars without spur gear covers could be run on dirt tracks without getting destroyed. But the truth is that in my experience, the failure rate on such cars is actually extremely low. And I think there are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, the exposed spur design is applied only on mid-motor cars where the spur is located in front of the rear-driven wheels. So the dirt that the car wheels are kicking up fly away from the spur rather than towards it. Secondly, the spur is also typically protected behind a snug-fitting body shell which acts as a dirt shield. Sure, failures do happen, but I don't think they are really as much a problem as some think they might be. That said, here's a little tip. for those who want to give the spurs in their B10TR trucks a little more protection and also keep their chassis a little cleaner when running on loamy dirt tracks. You can just mount a buggy body under the truck one as a chassis cover. I do this when I'm running, and while some dust still gets in, I think it does keep the car internals significantly cleaner over the course of the track day. Let's talk about how the truck runs. The good news is that I've been able to take the truck to the track for a few test runs, but the bad news is that it has been hard to get any footage of it running. Perhaps when the weather is better, I will get to film some proper track footage and do a track review. But let's just talk briefly about how the truck runs. To be honest, I had my doubts before I ran the truck about how a forward motor, two-wheel drive truck would perform on a small-sized, low-grip, loamy dirt track with a number of tight corners. Typically, mid-motor cars with a more forward-weight bias might find these conditions a handful as they struggle for rear grip, especially coming out of corners. But the B10TR really surprised me and also impressed many people at the track. The car's suspension, as expected, was extremely plush. It soaked up the rough areas of the track and landed the jumps like it was on a cushion of air. As expected, the car had very responsive steering, which allowed it to rotate around the tight hairpins quickly. What was surprising was that out of the corner, the truck could handle a decent amount of power without losing the rear end. Admittedly, I had to be a little more gentle on the throttle than on a rear motor car, but it was nowhere as difficult as I thought it would have been. The car was actually a pleasure to drive, and it handled so well, some of the guys watching actually thought the car was four-wheel drive. So the rear end can only get better with more tuning. I actually ran the car with the stock gear diff, which was still on my AstroTurf setup, running a thick 10,000 weight oil. I'm looking forward to installing a ball differential in the car, which I am certain will significantly improve rear end grip on dirt. Finally, let's talk about the cost of doing this conversion. I think depending on the options, the price of a conversion can vary quite a bit. Assuming you don't include a body, wheels and tires, and you stick to the stock B10R axles, a budget conversion could cost about US $120. A fuller conversion with a body and truck axles could run upwards of $200. Online, PR Racing USA has put together a conversion kit that's retailing at about $175, which sounds just about right. So, is it worth the conversion? Of course, it ultimately depends on you. I think that for someone that already owns a B10R buggy and is keen to work on a fun project and wants to have a capable stadium truck to hit the track with, this is certainly not a bad option. Now, the conversion wasn't exactly cheap, but you are getting quite a bit of parts for the money. And I dare say, a conversion for a buggy from any other manufacturer would rack up a much, much larger bill. But now that PR has announced an official B10TR kit, value-wise, it is probably best to simply purchase the kit if you are keen on a truck version of the B10R. So that brings me to the end of this video about the B10R truck conversion. You know, I've never really been much of a stadium truck guy, yet I must say I've enjoyed running this truck so much, I actually look forward to taking it to the track. PR has something very special here, and I think having a couple of these on the track would be a great way to spend an afternoon. If you've enjoyed this video and want to support me, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Let me know if you'd like to see the truck hit the track and maybe get a more detailed performance review. Until next time, thanks for watching.